Okay, hey, welcome everybody. Shawn Lucas here, head trader for the Apiary Fund. Welcome to this special Halloween edition of our Facebook Live, and we're going to be talking about some scary stuff today. You know, we're going to be talking about that moment when you're in a trade and it's dark outside and the candle is flickering up and down and up and down, and there's an eerie silence in the room, and your heart is pumping, and you hear it beat, 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 and you feel the pulse of that blood coursing through your veins, and you're beside yourself. That voice inside of you is saying, is this trade going to work out? Am I going to make money? Is it going to be a trick or a treat? Yep, we're talking about whipsaws today in our trading. And I know, if you've spent any time whatsoever in the market, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's one of those most difficult times to get through when you're trading. It's so much indecision, and all that fear, rushes through your body, and you're like, am I going to make money? So that's what we're going to talk about today in our Facebook Live, and kind of go through some of the ideas, some ideas of helping to resolve those whipsaws, and some ways of coping with some of the outcomes that happen with those whipsaws. Any rate, before we get into that, just a couple of things real quick. If we could, if I could get, let's see here. If I could get you to comment, I'm trying to see if I can see the Facebook Live right here on my screen while you are looking. I want to see where you're from. So if you could just type in the comment field, where you're from. And I'm gonna try and see if we can. I'm not seeing it for some reason. Any rate, what we're gonna do is, in honor of Halloween, we're gonna do a trick-or-treat bag. And so what I'd like to do is if you could comment in the comment field with number 1 where you're at, and number 2. Just give me some ideas, something you'd like to talk about in these trader lives. I'm open to any suggestions that you have. And then also, if you like it, this Facebook right now, if you like it and if you share it, each of those actions, where you're from, a suggestion for a topic, a like, and a share, will enter you into a drawing for our trick-or-treat bag. We've got some great apiary swag that we'll share with you. Maybe some honey, maybe some mouse pads or something like that. So anyway, great stuff. Just looking for some interaction here right now. If you want to enter in that drawing for our trick-or-treat apiary trick-or-treat bag, that'd be awesome. Another thing real quick. Normally we've been doing these on Thursday mornings, and which is great. We've had I spend the morning in the trading room with all of our traders, and that's a lot of fun. And then we get to hang up from that trading room and then come and do a Facebook Live. The challenge is that I think I don't have enough time in between the trading room and this Facebook Live. So we're going to move starting next week, we're going to move the Facebook Lives to Wednesdays. So we'll send out an announcement, make sure everybody knows when we do those Facebook Lives next Wednesday. And then also, I've got a special guest coming next Wednesday, so you won't want to miss that. So, all right, back to whipsaws. Let's talk a little bit about whipsaws and whipsaws in trading. For those of you who don't know what a whipsaw is, whipsaws are basically the market is sitting there at a support or resistance level, and it's showing all of the signs of breaking out. And so, you're getting ready to place a trade. That's the best time to get into a trade, is right when it breaks out. And so you go and place the trade, and all of a sudden it starts going in your direction, you're making money, and then on a dime that thing turns around and reverses on you. So those are whipsaws, and whipsaws are, they're frustrating as traders. We have a hard time understanding. It's a time when we have a lot of confusion in the market. What's going to happen? Is this real or is this fake? Is it a trick or is it a treat? And so anyway, how do we deal with them? And what are some ideas that we can use? What are some ideas that can help us get through those whipsaws? And in reality, can we take that whipsaw and turn it into something valuable in our trading? For those of you who were in the trading room this morning, you saw whipsaw after whipsaw. And I don't know if you caught this or not, but in our trading room, we talked about how I use the whipsaw to help me gauge who's winning the battle, right? So in my mind, I don't like to use the word, because everybody uses the word whipsaw, I use the word whipsaw. But what I think of when I think of a whipsaw is I think of a test, right? A whipsaw is nothing more than a test of a price in the market. You're sitting at a support or a resistance level, and the market is testing whether it wants to break that level. So if you look at a whipsaw through the lens of a test, well, then all of a sudden it doesn't hold all of the weight, all of the frustration with it. It's a test, right? And we expect some tests are going to pass and some tests are going to fail. And so if you look at it not through the lens of, oh, whipsaws lose me money, but you look at it through the lens of, oh, this is a test, and the market is simply testing whether it wants to break this level, then whatever action comes after that, if it continues in that direction or if it reverses, then the test either passed or failed. And so your job as a trader then is to learn how to respond to the test, okay? And you can use the test. So one of the first things that I'll do is I look at a chart. I wake up in the morning, I'm opening up my charts, I'm looking at how the market has formed, back 4 or 5 hours, back 10 hours, back a couple days on the hour chart. I'm watching and looking at how the price forms. And in particular, what I'm looking at is how many whipsaws or how many tests the market has at key support, resistance and support levels. So that's one of the first things that I'll do to help me get through these whipsaws is look into history of the chart and see how often that market whipsaws at key support or resistance levels. The second thing I'll do is I'll look at how the whipsaws form. Okay, so sometimes whipsaws can have this really long tail, right? It creates a really long wick and then it comes crashing back down. Well, in my mind, what I'm looking at when I see that is I'm gauging how thick is that support and that resistance level. Okay, because if it was a test and it breaks through, then you've gotten all the way through the support or the resistance pricing, right? Where everybody's looking to find support or resistance. But if it gets in there and it reverses on you, then hey, ding, 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 you've got a little bit of information to tell you how thick that support or resistance line is. Does that make sense? So when we draw a support or resistance line on a chart, we usually use a fine point line, right? But in reality, a support or resistance is usually a price range. It's between this price and that price. And so whipsaws can do a really good job of helping us figure out how deep or how thick that support or resistance level is. So that's the second thing. First thing, look into price history. Find out what it's done in the past, how these whipsaws form around these support resistance levels. Second thing is measure, take note of how thick those whipsaws are and how often they occur, right? That gives you an idea of how strong that support or resistance level is. Third thing to do is as you're looking at those whipsaws, notice which side the whipsaws are occurring, okay? So not the whipsaws, but the tails, okay? So we often correlate a whipsaw with a tail. So if the market is coming up into a support or into a resistance level, and you have all these tails that are whipsawing on the top side, you know, that's really easy for a lot of traders to see, because it's what's frustrating. That's what frustrates them. It's trying to break through that resistance level. It can't. It gets crushed back down. But what most traders don't see is the wicks on the opposite side of those support or resistance levels. So imagine you got all these wicks on the top side, but then you have all these wicks on the bottom side, right? So just as much pressure is pushing that market down, you've got equal amount of pressure pushing that market up. And that's really important to know, is that how much strength do you have on both sides of this market? And so those are three things that I look for when I open up a chart first thing in the morning, before I start trading. Those are some key data points that I look for to help me understand how a price is forming. Okay, now that's before the trade. Now you're in the trade, right? Now what happens when you're in the trade? Okay, you get this whipsaw. You're triggered into the trade. Market has been going up, finds a nice consolidation, and you get that test of the break, and it fails. The test fails, and so now you're losing money, right? You got triggered into the trade thinking the market was going to go up. It fails and comes back down. There's some things that we have to learn as traders. There's some things we have to learn about how to manage a whipsaw once it triggers us in, once it tricks us, right? We need to learn how to manage that. So I want to draw a couple of things. Maybe Dave, maybe you can come around here and we can take a look at the chart here. So a couple of things. Okay, so remember tests. So let's look at a market comes up into a resistance level, forms a little bit of, maybe this side's a little better, forms a little bit of a consolidation, right? You see that's your resistance level, we'll mark that R, and the market tests a break through that resistance level. So this is a test at that point, and in which case the test fails and it comes back down. So this is the point where we realize we just got whipsawed, is the point where that test of the resistance level fails. And so now you're in the losing position. You got triggered into the trade here. Can't see it. I'm getting notices that you can't see it. Maybe try that. Is that any better? All right. So note to self, we're learning how this all works. So the market fails. If it continues to go down, then you've got a reversal. So this is a reversal. So oftentimes a failed breakout is often a opportunity to get into the market the opposite direction. So where are the key points? So what you need to recognize is that any point between the resistance, between your trigger and the support of the consolidation, that's your risk. That's the max risk in a trade. Okay, so if that market fails and it crosses all the way back down through that consolidation, then this is actually a really good trade. You know, swap sides, change teams, go short. You know, a whipsaw followed by a reversal is a great. In fact, that's one of the trades that I almost always take. Now it also sets up a outside range, which can also be problematic. But that's a good approach. You know, if the market tests whipsaws, tests the resistance level, fails, and then breaks back down through the opposite side of the consolidation, then that's a good time to get in. I think we'll maybe not use this, Dave, and just kind of talk through it. So that's one thing that happens. Another thing that we often see is that market breaks the resistance level, it tests that resistance level, and obviously the same is true on the support side. I'm just going to use the resistance side for our purposes today. But it breaks that resistance level, it tests it, right? It fails, it comes back down into that consolidation zone, right? But it doesn't trigger the opposite side. So there's a couple of things. You can obviously hold at that point, because anytime you get consolidation after a whipsaw, it's kind of resetting the trade setup. In my mind, that's the way I look at it. I try and make things really simple in the market. So if you get a test, it fails, and then you get consolidation again, then that's a reset. You look at it as a reset. You can then gear up. You can use what new data you have to determine whether you're going to catch the next short leg if that happens, or you can even try and catch another up leg, another long leg, if that happens. So the second thing then, first thing is look for a reversal pattern. Okay, if you get a whipsaw, look for the reversal pattern, and if that reversal pattern forms, then by all means, test out how you do in that reversal trade. Second thing, if you get the test, it fails, and it gets into a continuation pattern or a consolidation pattern, then reset. Set everything right back up again. There's nothing at that point, nothing says it's going down, nothing says it's going up. It's just resetting all of the parameters. You still have the resistance, and you'll still have a support if you have consolidation, but you might as well set up the trade again. Third thing that often happens, that you see it quite often, is that the market tests the resistance level, it fails and comes back down into the consolidation zone, and then it finds new speed and it tests it again, tests that resistance level again. In these cases, what I'll look for is higher pivots on the low side, inside that consolidation. So it breaks, fails, comes back into the consolidation zone. I'll look for higher pivots. If I can get a series of higher pivots, then I'm resetting that resistance, that breakout trade all over again. I'm going to get right back into long, and I'll just keep doing it. As long as we're forming some support and higher pivot lows, then I'm getting right back into those trades. So those are sort of the what if scenarios that I often trade when I get a whipsaw. Just again to review. Number one, I get a whipsaw and it reverses. I'm all over that opposite trade. A failed trade is a great setup for a new trade in the opposite direction. So I almost always take that trade. Get the whipsaw, scenario number two, you get the whipsaw, you come back into consolidation, then I just reset. I'll close out the trade, take a little bit of a hit on the trade, and then reset for either another test and a break of the resistance or a reversal. If it's getting back into consolidation, it's resetting, and so you might as well reset your trade at that point. Third thing I look for is if you get the whipsaw, comes back down into the consolidation zone, then I'm looking for strength to build in the up direction. So if I get a series of pivot lows that are higher and higher and higher, then I'm holding on to that long position and maybe even strengthening, adding to it. So those are just three, what if you get a whipsaw scenarios and how I like to trade them. Any rate, folks, that about wraps it up for the day. Again, just chat, put some comments in the chat, in the comments field. Any comment that you put, any like that you put, we're going to enter you in the drawing. So a comment will enter you into the drawing. A like will enter you into the drawing, and a share will enter you into the drawing. And one of you lucky traders out there is going to get a trick-or-treat apiary Halloween bag, swag bag, and we'll send that out to you in probably next week. What do you think, Dave? Next week? Yeah, we'll look at doing that next week. We'll give it a week. So you can comment after this Facebook Live. You can still make comments and still enter to win. So that we'll do that maybe during the next trader Facebook Live. It's like trading live. No, that's not it. The next Facebook Live, which will be next Wednesday, not next Thursday next week, but Wednesday next week. And did we say same time? Is it? Or did we figure out a time?
Noon.
At noon Eastern. Noon Mountain Time. Noon Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. Next Wednesday, noon Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Got to make sure all these numbers. Which is what? 11 a.m. Pacific Time. I got this.
What is it, Hawaii?
Thank you, and happy trading. We'll see you next Wednesday. Got a special guest coming next Wednesday, so make sure you join us for Facebook Live next Wednesday, noon Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and 9 a.m. or 11 a.m. Pacific Time. We'll see you. See you, trading.